In this video, we'll be installing a 10,000 pound winch in the 4Runner. I'll tell you why I chose the Warn, how we dismantle the front end to prep for the install itself with the bolt up and the wiring, and then the final result. Stick around, this will be a fun and informative install. So after many months of researching and contemplating, I ultimately ended up with the Warn VR Evo 10S. This is a 10,000 pound synthetic rope winch. It has 90 feet of length for the rope, and this is everything that comes in the box. It comes with the fairlead, all the appropriate cables, as well as the hardware and the remote, which is both wired and wireless. The first step in installing this winch is going to be removing this front end again. So I removed it once before, and if you need to know the details on how to remove everything, please refer to the video I did on installing the Hefty Fabworks bumper, the step-by-step version. The reason why I chose this bumper is because it's modular. This bull bar and this front cover, with only a few bolts, will actually come right off and allow me access to bring the winch over and drop it in place. I've seen a lot of videos where guys are mounting the winch onto the bumper and then trying to lift 125 pounds and mount it into the 4Runner. And that is not fun. I chose this bumper knowing I was going to get a winch in the future. I just wanted to take my time and figure out which one I wanted, and now that I have it, I'm going to start to remove everything again, and then we'll mount this guy up. I'm going to remove these shackles so the cover will slide off when it's unbolted. I'm going to remove these Allen head bolts. There's 2 on each side of the bull bar, and then there's 3 that are located underneath here. So we'll take those off, and then everything should come off in the front. I have the whole front exposed now. The light bar is a little bit in the way, but once I take this front cover off, I should have full access to drop the winch right in. I'm going to take this bumper cover off right now. I'm going to put a link in the description below if you want a step-by-step on exactly how to remove this. That video also has the step-by-step install of this Hefty Fabworks bumper. There's 3 10mm bolts here that hold the bumper cover to the inner fender. I'll take off the 3 on the other side. There's a few 10mm bolts underneath. It'll give us room to get our hand behind and disconnect the wire connection for the fog light. This bumper cover actually press clips into the fender. So you give it a little, and it'll separate. This will give you enough room to stick your hand in here and disconnect the fog light. It's just a press clip and then a pull out. It's actually a press in and then pull down. That's one. I'll go do the other side, and then this cover is ready to come off. All right, so that didn't take very long at all. Now this is the actual skeleton structure here. So the winch will sit here. You can actually see the 4 mounting bolts. So the pattern should be very standard for this size winch. The only potential issue here is this line, which is a power steering line, and potentially this line, which is an AC line. The control pack for the winch sits high, so this might get in the way. So we'll have to potentially bend this out of the way. We'll see once we get it in there. This is the line right here that we're gonna have to rotate up. There's 2 10mm bolts on each side, so I'm gonna loosen those up and kind of play with this line a little bit. All right, so I'm rotating it. You can see I'm rotating it pretty easily. It does tighten up a little bit on the rubber sections, but I don't think it's anything to really worry about. I think this AC line is going to be a little in the way, so just be careful not to kink it, but I'm just going to pull it just a little bit to the side here. It bends very easily, so I would be extremely careful, because if you have to replace this line, it's going to be a pain in the butt. Then you have to discharge and recharge the entire system. This switch is about 54 pounds, and then about 6 pounds of accessories, so about 60 pounds total. So not bad if you're just placing it in, but I've seen other people have to lift the bumper and the winch together. That's not good. Alright, so I got the winch sitting down. The power steering line is hitting the top of the control box. There might be a sound and a vibration that could be really annoying. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to find a rubber hose that's large enough diameter where I can split it and lay it over this line. This way it's just rubber on plastic and it shouldn't be a problem. It's solid on there. It's not loose and going to jiggle, but I'm going to sleeve this and then we'll tighten these bolts back up. So here's one advantage of working on cars for so many years. I keep a lot of parts hanging around, so I happen to have a perfect size hose that I split, and it fits perfectly over that size diameter line. Alright, so I need to get the 4 bolts underneath the winch to mount it up nice and solid to the structure. Run the positive and negative cables up and then through to the battery. I need to connect the fairlead and then pull the line through. And then we'll wrap this up. I decided I'm going to install the fairlead before the winch because I think the winch might take up a little bit of room to get my fingers behind. So I'll install this one first and then I'll drop the winch in. The winch is sitting down behind the light bar. I have 4 bolts coming up from the bottom that's securing it in place. This is the power steering line that I was referring to. I put the sleeve on it here. It's solid. I haven't even tightened these 10mm bolts on each side yet. These are the wires from the control pack to the motor that run here. They're already pre-wired. I just had to add the negative cable in, which is going to run behind the winch. And then the negative and the positive are right here. I'm going to run these up where I ran the light bar, up through and then to the battery. Connect directly to the battery. When I put the cover back on, I should have access with my hand to the clutch. So I got free spool here, so I put it in free spool. I could pull that out. And we put it there, we're engaged. So before I button everything up, I'm going to connect the electric. I'm going to make sure everything works. And then I'll tighten everything up and put everything back together again. This is the connection for the remote. There'll be a space in the bumper where you can reach your hand in and plug it in. So that's plugged in. Remote is here. You can see that red light on the left side. It says mode. That's for the wired remote. So the bottom will spool in and the top will spool out. So let's test and make sure that's good. And spool out. That's good. Okay, so if we hold down the mode button, it should switch over to the right side. Nope, not. That's a mistake. I have to unplug it first, which I'll do right now. So I'll unplug from the winch itself, and then I'm going to unplug the wire from the remote. Now we have the wireless remote. So if I hold that mode button down, it's supposed to light the right button, which would mean it's operating wirelessly. That's good. So we have a wireless connection between the winch and the remote, and we'll test the functions now. So this is, I'll spool out since I'm a little too far in right now. That's good. And then we'll spool in. Let's see. That's good. All right, guys. The winch is connected and it's working correctly. I'm going to put everything back together. Here is the winch installed. Got the fairlead there, and I'm hooking it right now to the shackle. So a couple things I don't like. Number one is I actually don't like that. So I'm going to change that somehow to have the hook or whatever I use right off the fairlead, so it's not coming out and over to the shackle. For some reason I just don't like that. I also don't like the fact that if I look through the grill, right here I can see the positive cable. So I'm gonna have to fix that as well. That's gonna bother me. But overall, it's pretty stealthy with the black fairlead. It kind of blends right in there on the bumper. There are a couple things to keep in mind when you're installing added weight to the front of your vehicle. So I installed a Hefty Fab Works bumper, which is about 65 pounds more than the stock or the factory bumper. I also installed that winch today, and that was a total of 60 pounds. So I'm like 125 pounds added weight to the front of the 4Runner. That means potential things I have to look at are the headlights now sitting too low? Am I getting the correct throw from the lights? So I actually measured that this morning before I did the install on the winch. So I'm going to measure it again later, and we're going to see if that 65 pounds of added weight changed the position of the headlights. I did not, which I should have done, check that before I installed that hefty Fabworks bumper. So the other thing to keep in mind is with the added weight on the front, when you are braking, are you going to get nosedive? So I'll have to pay attention to that as well. And another thing is, you start to lose a little bit of clearance. And if you're off-roading, that ground clearance means a lot. So, the extra weight on the front will bring the front down a little bit. So next mod is going to be the Bilstein suspension setup. Doing a lift on it. It's not going to be a crazy lift. It'll be fairly mild. We're going to do 2 inches in the front, 1.5 in the back. And we're going to try to get that 4Runner not just back to factory ride height. We're trying to get it with a mild lift. I still need to fit this thing in the garage. So I can't have this thing sitting out in my driveway. I don't like that. There's way too much money sitting on top and around the 4Runner to have it outside in the driveway. So this thing will be in my garage nightly. So when you add weight, those are some things you really have to keep in mind. In addition, when you install a new winch, and I don't have a lot of experience with winches. I have a lot of experience working on vehicles, but I do like to read a lot and learn as much as I can before I do modifications. So when you add that winch, it is recommended from Warn, because I'm using the Warn VR 10S, 10S being a 10,000 pound winch with synthetic rope. You need to unspool that, and then you need to respool under load, which is with at least 1,000 pounds of load when you spool. So you're putting tension on that synthetic rope, and then you also need to wind it up into the drum in a consistent way, going back and forth. You can't have it wrapped up and start going over itself. So that's one thing we also need to do before we start using that winch. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. We do have a lot more content coming up. The Ram Rebel is going up for sale. If you're following the channel, you'll know what vehicle that is. And we are bringing a new Toyota to the channel, so stay tuned. That's going to be a real nice build. Remember, life begins where the pavement ends. We'll see you on the next one, guys.